Hi Blender fans and welcome to Blender TC. In today's tutorial we're going to be making a beacon, the kind that you see on the tops of earth moving equipment or fire engines or other things. In today's tutorial we'll be making the beacon and at the end we'll be animating it, so join me at the end to see how we do this. Please subscribe to Blender TC and don't forget to ring that bell. For this tutorial we'll be using the cube, so what we'll do is move the cube. So I'm just going to go through some of the quick keys we'll be using in this tutorial. So we've got G, which moves the cube. Control Z undoes your last move or last few moves. G and X moves it across the red line. Control and Z to undo. G and Y across the green line. Control Z to undo, and G and Z moves it up and down. Control Z. We'll also be using extrude. So extrude is in edit mode, so if you hit the tab key, E to extrude, Control Z to undo, and we'll also be using loop cut, Control R. That puts a loop cut in. I'll just do that again just to actually clarify it. What you do, you've got point select, line select and face select. If you select a face or a line, then press Control then R, it'll make a loop cut. If you move your mouse to the other directions, then it'll make the loop cut across that face. Pressing the left mouse button fixes it, but you can move it up and down in its confines. And one further mouse click, so a double mouse click will actually fix it. That's the left mouse. There we go. So let's undo that. Control Z. For this tutorial, we're also going to use a thing called scale. So we select the top face, press the S key, and then if I write 0.5, it halves the top cube. That's more or less everything that we're going to use in the tutorial, so let's set the actual scene. What we've got here is we're in cycles. For this tutorial we're going to actually select the viewport, and the viewport's going to be the render one, which is the end one. So that's a viewport render. We don't want to do this in layout, we're doing it in modeling. So if I select modeling and reselect the actual render view because it changed, as you can see we're still in edit mode, so press the tab key to come out of edit mode and we're about ready. Right. Like I said, we're in cycles up here. We don't want to be in cycles because if your machine's not very powerful, it's sometimes a lot easier to do things in Eevee, but for this tutorial is in Eevee, so we'll select Eevee. Oops, sorry. If it'll let me do it. There we go. As you can see, we're now selected in Eevee. For this render, we don't need it to be as high as 64, so I'm just going to change that to 32, which makes it a lot easier if your machine's not very powerful. We're going to click on ambient occlusion, click on bloom, and screen space reflection. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger so I can see things. So you've got screen space reflections. You need to tick this, and then inside there's also refractions, and you also need to tick this for this tutorial to work. So tick those two. Right, we're nearly there. I think we're ready to begin in this tutorial, so let's begin. If you hold your middle mouse button down and hold your shift at the same time, this allows you to pan, so as you can see from there. So I'm going to go into edit mode by pressing the tab key, select the top, and I'm going to scale down this, so S by 0.5, because we want to make a rough beacon shape. As you can see, this cube, or what was the cube, is the green line goes halfway through it. So what I'm going to do is what I'm going to do is make a loop cut. So press the tab key, select line select, and Control R. And left actually fixes it, so you can move it up and down. So we'll move it up to about there, and then what I'm going to do is scale it. So press the S key, and then by 0.6. Oops, sorry, no. Scale it. Press the S key, 1.2, and there you've got it. You've got roughly a beacon shape already. So what next thing I'll do is, what we're going to do is we're going to make a loop cut here. Control and R, left click, and then move it down to about there. It's entirely up to you where you move it to, but what we're going to do then is, I've got on face select up there. We're going to select this. Remember, you've gone into edit mode because with your tab key. And what we're going to do is, what you do is get the Alt key, press the Alt key, select that line, and then that selects everything all the way around. I'm now going to do a double move, which is E to extrude it, and then S to scale. And we'll scale it up. So. And then I want the bottom face to be sharp, so to make it sharp, we're still in face select. Control and R, put a loop cut round the side and pull that right down, very close but not quite to the edge. And if I just scroll in, I'll just show you that. See, it's very close to the edge, but it's not really close, and that'll make a sharp edge, because having two lines makes a sharp edge when we're going to subdivide. And Control and R, and I'm going to put one up there, about there, because I want this to be a slightly rounded corner. So back out of edit mode by pressing the tab key, and now we're going to select this spanner or the wrench and add the modifier, and the modifier is going to be a subdivision modifier. So hit the subdivision modifier, change this to 3 on both. One shows the viewport, the other one shows how it was rendered. If your computer's running a bit slow, you can leave it on 2, but it'll render on 3. Entirely up to you. So now we've got an actual shape of our cone, or our beacon. What we're going to do now is double click on there and just rename it. Let's give things some names, because it makes it easy to select later on. So we've got as beacon shape. I'm just going to add a plane, so add mesh plane, and I'm going to scale that up, and then G to move, and Z in the up and down direction, and just move it so it's about there. So now we've got a beacon and we've got a floor underneath it, just so we can see it a bit easier. If we go into, if we press the 0, that takes us into the camera view. It normally does. There we go. And that's what it'd look like in the render. As you can see, that doesn't look much like glass. So there's a few things we need to do. The first thing I'm going to do is add a new material. So what I've done is gone onto the material tab down here, material properties, add a new material, and I'm going to make this like an orange colour, because, and as you can see, what I've done there is I've gone onto the plane. So I'm just going to Control Z, because I don't want to actually change the plane colour. I'm keeping it to that grey white, or the default. Right, select the beacon. You know beacon's selected because of this up here. So I'm going to select the beacon and I'm going to change it to an orange colour, because I want an orange beacon. I'm not going to smooth this out by pressing that and shade it smooth, because what I'm going to do is use these flat faces to reflect. I'm going to use these flat faces to refract the light. Try and say that. So we've got that, but you can't see through it at the minute. The way we make it see through is we go to the actual transmission here and we change that all the way up to 1, which makes it see through or reflective, but it's still not see through. So the way you cure this problem is, as you've got down here, you just keep going down, keep going down, keep going down, and you see this screen space refractions. Hit the screen space refractions, and that's it. Voila, you've got a glass. If you change the color of the from orange to white or just to blue, you've got yourself a glass. If you to smooth shade that, you could use that as a glass material on anything you want, but we're going to keep with orange. I'm going to keep it there. So that's it. As beacon is now finished. Oh no, it isn't. What we need inside here is a light. So what I'm going to do is select the beacon, and I'm just going to hide it. There's two ways of hiding it. You can either hit the little eye up here, which hides it and makes it reappear, or you can press the H key, or Alt H to make it reappear. Because at present we don't need this beacon, so I'm just going to hide it by pressing the H key. Next, what I'm going to add is the lamp itself, the thing that spins around the center and makes all the actual, the flashing light. So what I'm going to do is add in a mesh. The mesh we're going to use for this is a UV sphere. So here we have it, a plain old UV sphere. Go into edit mode by pressing the tab key. And what I'm going to do with this is, with everything selected, I'm going to press the R key, which is rotate, along the green line, which is Y, by 90. By turning it 90 degrees, when I actually spin this will make it flash. You'll see what I mean in a minute. And I'm going to scale the actual, in the X direction, which is across the red line, scale X, scale X by, let's say, 0.4 to make our lens. And I'm just going to scale that by half, so scale it 0.5 to make a small lens. So now we've got a small lens that we can spin. Right, what I did there is went in and out of edit mode by pressing the tab key. So select the point, select. What we're going to do, in fact, before we do that, what we'll do is we're going to add two materials to this. So go into materials, one material, then hit the plus and add another material. The first material we'll call, let's call it dark, and the second material we'll call it bright. It's up to you what you call these materials, entirely up to you. So for the dark material, we're going to actually make it black. So double click on black, pull this all the way down, and the materials turn black. I'm also going to turn the actual reflectiveness up slightly to 0.252. Did that by just dragging this 0.252, or you can type it in like that. And I'm going to take the roughness up nearly to the top. So what we've got now is a black disc. And for our second material, which obviously is bright, we're going to get rid of the principal BFSDS, and we're going to replace it with an emission shader. The emission shader is found on this long list, and you get onto that list by pressing the little dot at the side. If for some reason the emissions shader is not showing, you can scroll your wheel up because it's probably just out of view up here. So let's just go up to emissions. So we've got the emission shader, and I'm going to change this up to 100. Now, as you can see, we can't see very much at all yet. So go into tab key, and then we'll change tab key, go on point select up here, hit the point, and we're going to use a new key now, which is control or key combination and plus. And what we're going to do is just keep doing it till it's about there, because I'm going to want this front face to be our lamp or our bright area. So we've highlighted that. If you go too far, you can put control and minus, which shrinks it again. So I tell you what, yeah, and about there. And what we're going to do is assign this bright colour. So assign, and as you can see, we've now got a bright area. Just going to change that to an orange colour, or yellowy orange, and that's it. Come out of edit mode, unhide our beacon, and we've now got our beacon. Right, to finish off our tutorial, like I mentioned at the beginning of the actual intro, what we're going to do is we're going to actually spin this now along the z-axis, which is the one going from top to bottom. So it's going to spin around that like the z is the axis. So go into animation with your lens selected. In fact, we'll rename that to lens. Or should we call it lamp? Yeah, we'll call it lamp, because it is the lamp. It's not the light. The light's up here somewhere. It's a lamp that's sitting inside our lens. So go into the lamp, and what we'll do is we're going to rotate this by 360 or more. Well, let's have a look. So go to animation. You need to switch it back into actually rendered mode. Do it on both of these so we can see it. As you can see, it's facing away from us at present, but what we're going to do is we're going to add a bit of an animation to this. So with your lens selected, there's two ways of doing this. What you can do is you can actually press the I key while hovered over here, which actually makes a keyframe, or while you're over here you can press the I key and lock rotation and scale. It's called lock rotation and scale, and it does the same thing. I prefer these on animation because it's more controllable. That's just my preference. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the I'm going to press the shift key and then press the right arrow key, which will take me to frame 250. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it, let's go back to frame 0, is you go down into this box down here and you type 250. It's up to you. Control, shift and right click is the quick keys. Left and right takes you to either end of it. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually type in, I'm going to type in 360 degrees, but then I'm going to put a times 7, because I want it to turn around 7 times in the 250 frames. Now if you wanted it to turn around 50 times, then you just do 360 times 50 and so on and so on, but I'm doing 7. And if we actually press our space bar, we should be, oh, no we can't. So as you can see, that's changed to 2520, but because we haven't got these little dots in here, that means there's no keyframe. So you can either right click, press the I key and go lock rotation and scale, or you can, like say, you can just over that, press the I key again, and that's added our keyframe. The only other thing that I could show you now, if let's have a look, we'll just spin this, just let it go. As you can see, it starts off slow, speeds up in the middle, and then it slows down at the end, which might not be what you want for your animation. I personally think that these should spin round continuously, so I'd want it to keep on spinning. So what I'd do is I'd set the keyframe to linear. So let's just do that. As you can see, it says key here. You've got a thing called interpolation mode. Interpolation mode is the way that you actually set these up. So you select interpolation mode. There's all sorts of things. If you do linear, remember that you've got to have the lamp selected, or the light in the middle. See, now it's on linear, it'll just keep on turning. So it gets to the end, keeps on turning without stopping. But keyframing is quite useful because you can actually go into interpolation mode, and you can do something like a constant, or quadratic, or even a bounce. Now back will change the direction of it. Oh no, what does back do? Oh, that's an interesting thing. I don't see that one. Alright, so interpolation mode. Bounce, we'll make it bounce, I believe. Yep, it turns so far, then stops and bounces back. Goes the opposite way, and it appears to bounce slightly. Strange. For this animation, we're going to have linear. Experiment with these. You've got all these different ones, you know, circular and things like that, and constant. Constant means that it just actually keeps it on the same frame all the way through, so it doesn't change it. Don't know why that's there. But like I say, we're going to interpolation mode, and we're going to go to linear. Thank you for watching this tutorial. If you liked it, please subscribe. And to use this in your animations or whatever you want to do, all you've got to do now, I'm just going to render this out. So just stop the animation for a second. I'm going to change the world color, make it a bit darker, right into the world properties, and I'm going to take this darker because I think it just look better. And then what I'm going to do is go into model, back into modeling, come out of edit mode, and I'm going to go, in fact no I'm not, I'm going to go into random mode up here, put random animation, no, and that would render the animation. But there's a few things you've got to set up in when you're doing an animation. So what I've got here, I'm just going to select on my computer, my D drive, my Blender work. I've got one called Beacon up here. As you can see, I've tried a few things, and what I'm going to do is accept that. So if I wanted to give my animation a name, I'll call this one Beacon 42, for instance. So I'll call it Beacon 42. We're just going to put a dash, and I'm going to change it from ping, because it'll do individual images, which is a good thing if you want something to render and you don't, and it's a long render, and you can do it frame by frame. So if your computer crashes, you don't lose work, and you can stitch them all together later on. Or you can do FFmpeg video, which I'm going to do for this because it's a very short animation, and the chances of my computer crashing something like nil. So, and I'm going to render that out. So render animation, and now this is going to render it to a file. If you like this tutorial, please subscribe to Blender TC. Don't forget to ring that bell, and please do leave a comment because it's very useful to me when creating these tutorials. Hope you like the actual beacon tutorial. Like I said, I use this on a earth moving piece of equipment. I might do that in a longer tutorial, but not today. I think I prefer doing these short and easy tutorials because it helped me a lot when I was learning. Please join me for my next tutorial. Hit that bell.